Hi, Jillian. How are you doing? Hi, Jillian. How are you doing?
Hi, Francis. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yes,
That's
welcome to this live stream. Thank you for accepting to be live on Tech Namsangi's YouTube channel. Karibu sana.
Santi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, yes, we'll start right away. I was just confirming on this other side if the video is okay. I hope you are doing great. So who is Jillian, if we are to be asked? For someone who has never seen you, has never known about you, what do you do? Of course, in the context of software development. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So as you said, my name is Gillian. I'm Gillian Ngugi. I'm a software engineer slash QA. Um, so basically, what I do is I develop software APIs. I also do front end. At the same time, I ensure quality. So I am a QA for almost most of the channels. There's APIs, web, mobile, Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, I
Ah,
don't want to really expound.
okay. Brilliant. So it means you're doing everything. You're a full stack developer.
You could say so. You could say so, yeah.
Okay, you're starting from uh, you develop the front end, back end, and you even confirm the quality of the software. That's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, today and how has your development journey been?
My development journey has been interesting. So, um, it started when I did my internship. So back then, uh, I wasn't doing a lot of development. It was more of me supporting during my internship. Then I moved to, my first company where they threw me to the deep end actually. I joined when we were just given a short grace period. So I started on APIs. I started developing APIs and also doing front end. So I think from the get go, I was kind of pushed into being a full stack developer. Back then, we used to use Angular and Spring Boot. Then I took up other projects using, React, Laravel, Vue.js. Now I'm back to using Spring Boot.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah.
Brilliant. So, in terms of languages, mostly you have done the front end languages.
In terms of languages, front end, I think JavaScript is a powerhouse because most of them front end frameworks that are there today are actually JavaScript oriented. If you talk of React, Vue.js, also Angular has a lot of JavaScript in it.
Okay.
In terms of backend, I mainly focus on my core languages are Java and Python.
Ah, brilliant. Okay. Okay, today we are speaking about test automation. For
Yeah.
me, I'm a Business Central developer, and it's an ERP. That's, of course, I can code other languages like PHP, C Sharp, but mainly my focus is Business Central, which works with L programming, which is a whole new language. It's an extension based language, and they introduced, of course, it was introduced a long ago, test automation, but again, you find that it has not been embraced as such in especially on-prem clients because of some okay, probably it has to do with the ERP being an extension. So you find that most of the things have been done, and it's just an extension to what is already there in the system. So most of the viewers are Business Central developers, and of course, I believe a conversation on testing will really help them embrace it, or those who have not embraced it, and maybe learn something new for those who would like to learn something new as well. So, what's the difference between the manual testing and automation testing for someone who only knows about manual testing, or they don't know the difference? What's the difference between the two?
Okay, so maybe I can just start off by, as you said, manual, it really speaks for itself. Manual testing mainly requires human intervention for test execution. So, like, a person has to, do the whole thing from putting in the test data to testing. But when it comes to automation testing, here you use tools. There are automation tools used to execute test cases. And, automation testing is, when you use it, you end up saving, time, cost, manpower, and it's also more accurate, but that's dependent on some tests. Um, yeah, so that is in a nutshell what is the difference on, base level between manual testing and test automation.
Okay, so when you are saying automation, you are using tools. You mean so the tools will just run through your code and test it, or what do you need to do
Okay,
for you to make the tool
yeah.
test
Okay,
your
okay.
code?
All right. So, by automation tools, I mean there are tools that are there that are being used for to automate. For example, you can use Selenium. There is Cucumber. Postman is mainly used for API testing. There is also Appium for mobile, Cypress for web, which is based in Node.js. There are a number of tools. So where you start is, of course, these are, some of them are open source, most of them are free, but if you want to use them, say in a company, you have to purchase them, their licenses and everything. So what you do is, you have to install, for example, if it's Selenium or Postman, you install it on your device, and then, there are configurations that are done for you to be able to, start testing using them. It's not as automatic as, say, manual testing. For example, if I'm testing an app, I'll just open the app on my phone. I have my test data on the side, so I'm checking test data while I'm testing manually. But with automation, you have to, build the code. If it's the test inputs, you have them in the code, so that uh, it's kind of like plug and play, where you just hit run and then it just starts running. It's kind of like running code.
Wow, wow, wow. So here we are speaking of creating so much code to test whatever you have written. And okay, I'm really curious on the time it takes. Does it take more time? Because, you know, for me, I'll be considering, okay, this thing will take more time for me to finish. How do you consider that? Because if I'm to create my code and do a manual test and deploy it, rather than have to do the extra work of creating those test cases, uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I that's a good question, by the way. So when you say, okay, manual testing can be, it can be easier, but trust me, automation testing is easier. The only, yes, automation testing becomes is only it takes more time initially, in the initial stage, where you're getting the the software installed in your machine. There are configurations to be done depending on the operation or operating system you're using, and writing the initial code. But once you have all the softwares and the configurations in place and you've written the code, it's literally plug and play. You don't have to be there and test everything manually. Plus, another advantage of using, automation testing is that you're able to reuse the code. For example, if, for example, it's an app or a website you want to test, uh, if it doesn't change very frequently, in which case most systems don't change very frequently, it's wise to have an automation suite where you do regressions over and over, because plus it's going to help with performance. It's also going to help you in tracking, changes in the system if anything is broken, because it's literally just plug and play. You just click run and it runs everything, as opposed to you testing everything one by one by one. That takes more time. When the suit itself is running, yourself, you can be doing something else, which is, saves on time. Yeah.
Ah, brilliant, brilliant. So, is there a specific method or approach to creating those tests automations? Like, do we have a guideline? Just maybe give an example of an app, probably, and then is there a guideline to creating those tests?
Okay. So maybe I can start off by saying the guideline will depend on the platform we are trying to test. So because that there is web, you can have USSD, you can have mobile, like you can have APIs. It really depends on what exactly you want to test. For example, you've asked specifically for mobile, we can use that. So say you have an app and you want to test an app. First off, you have to establish, is it iOS or is it Android? That's where you need to start. For example, say it's Android, because a lot of people are Android users, they can go with that. So with Android, there are the softwares that are mainly preferred by a lot of people, internationally, as opposed to say other softwares. For example, mobile testing, you can use Appium, and it depends if you want to code with Java or Selenium, Java or Python. You can use things like Selenium, you can use Cucumber. There are the specific softwares that you can use that are preferred because there's also support in case you're stuck. It's preferable to use something that a lot of people are using, so that in case you're stuck and you're alone, you can just go to the internet and there's definitely someone who has encountered something you're encountering at the moment, and there's support for that. So yeah.
Okay, so yes, those are the tools maybe that you could be using for the tests. But just picture a beginner who is into testing for the first time and they're like, I'd like to know what approach, what should I do? Of course, I should automate. Yes, this is the tool. Maybe that is the selection of the tool, and I am sure every other language has a different tool based on the language that you're using. You'll have a test automation tool that is different from any other tool. Is there something like that will make tests similar in a way of saying, if it's a function that I'm testing, how many test cases should I have? Or let's picture a functionality where I am confirming if the leave days, if I'm applying for a leave and I have 5 leave days left, if I can, and I want to do a test automation to confirm that the system will make sure that I don't apply more than 5 leave days, such a functionality or such a kind of an example. How do you approach a test cases in such an example?
Okay, first off, you asked about beginners,
Yeah,
maybe where a beginner will start.
yeah.
So we can start with that. Maybe as a beginner, first of all, you need to understand there's this language called Gherkin, and Gherkin is not dependent on, whether it's Java or Python. There are frameworks that are used across. It's not language dependent. So maybe I can clarify that. Things like Cucumber or Selenium, you can use them with almost any language. You just have to get the right plugin for that. Appium is also not language dependent because it's just supporting the mobile app. So the first place to start is to understand this language called Gherkin, which is very English oriented. It's literally a language you can read because it's based on the given, when, then concept. So for example, you have the functionality you've said where someone wants to, check, if I got this correctly, check whether the leave days do not exceed, say, 5 days. We can use that as an example. So you start with gak you start with the gherkin, which is literally writing in English. So you're going to say, given a user has logged into the system, when the user say is checking whether the no when say that all the prerequisites are there, then you start step 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to say, then maybe you check whether the leave days are 5 days. And then, like, what I'm basically saying is the first place to start is this Gherkin language, and then you build from it. After Gherkin, now the other dependencies are going to be now, language oriented. If you're using Java, there are things called step definitions. So after the Gherkin language, after the Gherkin steps, you're going to move on to the step definition, which is which explains what you wrote in the Gherkin language. But of course, maybe I can just say that you cannot start automating just fresh off the bat like that. You have to really, it's kind of like, I can't tell you to start coding something in Java and you don't know Java. You have to learn it first. So my advice to maybe a beginner will be to get some materials on or resources on learning some of these concepts, so that it's easier for them when they start. There are, say, YouTube channels on that. There is ISTQB materials, QA materials, to just get you started on some of these things.
Okay. Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. We spoke of the benefits maybe in just a global view. And yeah, I've heard of the given, when, then. We also use it in Business Central. When you create a test case, it even gives you comments of the given, then, when, and then, okay, given, when, then.
Then,
Kind of confusing. So what should you put in the given, and what should you put in the when, and what should you put in the then, if you're
okay.
using, yeah.
So given and when are one statement. Like, there's only one given, there's only one when, but you can have so many thens.
Okay.
So given is the starting point. If you're testing, say, a website, you can start by saying, given the user has logged into, say, the website, has logged into into their portal or something. Then you have your when. So when at the when, mainly you usually put prerequisites. You can have the prerequisites on the given. So you can say, given a user has logged in, when say the user, for example, you're testing login, when the user has input all their test data, for example, that is the username and password, then you can say the user should click login. And then you can have another then, which kinds of checks, then the user should be able to have logged in successfully. And then, because once you log in, you're usually redirected to another page, say the dashboard. You can have, maybe the dashboard has a heading, say Francis. You can check for that heading. So the next then can be, then the user should be able to view the heading Francis. What that does is it ensures that the user has been able to log in successfully and has been redirected to the dashboard. This is just an example. Yeah, you
Okay.
could use that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a brilliant example. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I looked at that given, when, then, and every time I'm creating a test, I'm in the given. Have I put my code correctly in the given, or is it supposed to be in the then or in the when? So yeah, at least now it makes it easier. The given and then, they're not far away from each other, because I was like,
Yes.
is this supposed to be in the given or in the then?
Yeah,
Then
it can be quite confusing.
yeah,
True.
yeah, it can be
Yeah.
quite confusing, especially when starting. Yeah. Okay. So what will you say are the benefits maybe of automated testing? We have touched on a few, but why should companies embrace it? Like, if a test development team has not been using automated testing, what will they benefit? Why should they invest more of their time to test or to create those tests instead of just deploying it using the manual tests? What benefits will they get?
Okay. So I already mentioned about saving on time.
Yeah.
And time is money, so it ends up saving money as well. By saving on time, I mean, I think I explained this in a question you asked.
Yeah.
So basically, by saving on time, you can take, for example, there are tests. Some of the code bases don't change, and you can be able to use these automated suits to regress, say, software that is, it's not going to change or hasn't changed in a long time. So, and the good thing with it is that it's reusable. With automation suits, you can be able to reuse them over and over, which ensures more accuracy, ensures more quality. Because, for example, if I tell a tester to keep testing code, or to keep checking a website, or an app, there are a lot of features. Say it's something in production, it can't be something small unless it's a very small product. But if it's like a product, say a website, or an app that's being used in, on production level, it definitely has to have a lot of features in it. So telling if you tell someone to test it over and over and over every day, say, to check for defects, to check whether something is broken, they may be able to, it may be cumbersome, it may be very time consuming, and because it's very laborious, they may end up, um, they're going to get tired at some point. But when it comes to automation, it's accurate. A machine will not get tired unless you have an issue with your RAM. So it's going to be able, you can just start the automation suite and check literally every day whether anything is broken. It's more reliable, it's faster. For another benefit is when you have so many inputs. At times you can have a test that you need to test, the equivalence boundary analysis. You've probably heard of that, where you need to test different inputs in different levels. Say you need to input, say it's a financial system, and you're testing something. You could want to test a band from 0 to 100. You could test a band from 100 to, say, 500, 500 to 1,000, and telling someone to do all that, at a point you can even get confused. Where was I? But with a machine, especially with things which involve a lot of input data, it's way more accurate. Yes, those are some of them, some of the benefits why companies should be able to take up this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you mean they can go to a level where they don't even need the manual tests at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because for as long as this is not code that keeps changing, because you see at times maybe, and even if it changes, all you have to do is add that scenario on what changed on, say, the website, or the app, or the mobile, or the web, or the APIs. You need to add whatever changed there, and you add it to, the suits, and then it's just going to keep testing and testing. But also, you see, manual testing is not totally I don't want to put it as if manual testing is doesn't have its own benefits. Manual testing can also have its own benefits, in the sense of, say, you want to test something on the fly. For example, you're at a client, or you need to just verify something quickly. You see, with automation, you have to set up, maybe switch on your machine. You have to switch on. You have to get your ID out. There's some configs you'll need to be that to do to be able to plug and play. But with if it's something that you just need to check quickly, manual testing can come in handy. Manual testing can also come in handy, for example, when you want a user to accept a certain software or system. If it's a user testing, you're not going to tell them, let's test with the suit they'll want to test themselves, get the feel of whatever is going on. So in such scenarios, manual testing is important. But if you want to save on time, and if it's testing that you need to keep doing over and over just to guarantee the accuracy of the code, then automation wins in that. It's good. Yeah, it's going to be preferable there.
Okay, okay. Seems so cool. So people should change the mindset to probably embracing more of this automation testing.
Yeah.
And the other curious question will be, what challenges have you faced with the automation testing?
Okay, so with automation testing, some of the challenges are, of course, upfront. You'll need to make an investment. So it can take a dip in your pocket upfront. Well, on individual levels, most of these things are free. But if it's a company, and a company will have to do everything, legally, and purchase the licenses for, like, a lot of people say they have 10 or 15 developers, so it can be an investment upfront, because you'll need to purchase some of these things, or maybe some of uh, the software that you need to incorporate will need yearly subscriptions. There's that. So there's the financial aspect. There's also, I could say, there's also another aspect of automation cannot, it's quite hard for it to test UI UX. So you cannot substitute UI UX with automation testing, because you see, a bot cannot know that the color is green instead of blue, or maybe you wanted something to have a curvier border than, maybe you wanted a circle or a rectangle. You get what I mean.
Yeah.
So in terms of layout and design, it's still very wise to have a UI UX person to check all of that. Yeah, those are some of the things, why the challenges of automation.
Oh, so this automation testing will cannot. Okay, in some aspects it cannot be able to test, especially the UI, user interface. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because yes, the code could be working, but the UI could be horrible. And you're saying everything
Yeah,
is okay, but the user, the look and feel, which is as important as the code working, then it can
exactly.
make it can make uh, the the team or the users feel it's horrible. So how do you now integrate the user testing, the UI testers, and the okay, of course, the automated test with the UI testers. Which one comes first? Will you start with the UI, make sure it's okay, and then go to this now normal automated tests?
Okay, this is a good question. Maybe I can just say that, you see, with coding, there's a SDLC, the whole methodology where
Mm.
you start with test design. So in test design, you see, UI UX is something that is done pretty much upfront. It's kind of like how front end development is what begins, and then as you move towards back end. Okay, some people can start with back end and end up with front end, but what I really mean is to say is that UI UX is something that is done pretty much upfront, and it's not something that really needs to be tested every now and then as the functionality of the app. So functionality needs to be tested way more, because you see, UI UX is something that, even as a tester, as you're testing, it's something that you can just look at the app. You can look and see, oh, this shouldn't be here, this should be here, something of the sort. So uh, basically, UI UX is doesn't need to be done as frequent as checking the functionalities of the app. And yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, and again, okay, on the automation testing, since the test code is usually more than the normal code, right? it's usually bigger, or in terms of size. I'm looking at the size of the code. Is it usually, if it's a file, if I'm testing one file in a system, a new file with 5 functions or 3 functions, so the tests will be probably close to 10 functions, right?
Yeah, because you have to you have to test both positive and negative scenarios.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just can't do the happy path where everything is passing. So the good thing about testing is, as opposed to say writing code, is that you have to really test the breaking point of the code. And if you want to see the breaking point of the code, you have to really put a lot of scenarios there to test a lot of functions. That's the only way, because you don't know what. Say it's an app that's being used by a million users. Out of the a million users, there's going to be someone who's going to do something that you probably didn't think about. That's why you have to have a lot of scenarios to cater for, because you don't know what these people are thinking when they're using your app.
Okay, so how will you maintain the scaling? Because I'd imagine you'll have now your tests becoming, maybe you have an app that contained maybe 100 files with in different folders, or let's say 200 files. So if I'm to introduce tests, I'll have maybe close to 600 files. I'm trying to look at how will I maintain uh, scaling of those tests, because with time they'll scale and there'll be so many.
Okay, first of all,
Yeah.
you have to decide on which tests you're going to automate. As I said, like not everything is automatable. Some things you're still going to have to do manually. When it comes to, you know, for example, it's an app, and you have, say, 10 scenarios or 10 features that you need to test. There's also the thing of performance. You have to look at performance and memory, space and time complexity. So you really don't want to overdo. You don't want to push your code too far, or write test cases that are going to run for 3 hours. What you do is you take the major functions, and then you can have a function inside a function. You don't have to write so many, maybe have so many pages or functions to test something. Let me give this simple example. Say it's a website with a sign in, login, and you have a dashboard that say registers some clients for whatever. So what you can do is you can have a very long, you can have one scenario that's really very very long, so that you don't have to keep logging out, logging back in to check for another scenario, then logging out and logging back in to check for another scenario. So this is what I will do. You can link up your functions. So the first step, you can log in. You can say, given the user is logging in when the user is inputting, the username and password, then the user can be able to log into the dashboard. Then you can check whether the user is logged into the system successfully. Then this is now where you start. Then the user should be able to say, perform function one. After function one is complete, you check, and you can use ands here, and the user was able to perform function one successfully. Then the user, you go to function two, then the user should be able to do xxx. Then you confirm. You can have a very long function, because what makes code quite verbose, if I could say, is some people, you can try to have so many scenarios, which end up taking a lot of, the space complexity ends up being very big. Hence performance becomes, you derail the performance of the code. So you can link them instead of having short scenarios. Because when you have short scenarios, what you have to do is you have to make sure you kill the driver, so that you log out, then you have to log back in. With every scenario, you'll have to log out, log back in, which makes it, more complicated. So you can link them up to maintain scalability. Also, make sure you're using the right testing framework, and also make sure you're testing on real devices, because sometimes you can link up, you can decide to use remote devices, and that would, you don't know where, with remote devices there could be so many challenges. Maybe the SIM card is not in, maybe the Wi-Fi there is not there, so you can use device that's with you to just ensure everything is working properly. Those are some of the things I will say.
Okay, so it means here you should say this principle of do one thing. There's a programming principle of if a function is called, a function should only do one thing. Maybe if it's a function that's calculating maybe my age, uh, if it's saying get age, it should just get the age and not do something else. And you're saying maybe in testing we can consider having a longer function to make it even easier for our tests, right?
Yes, we, you see, with writing the test, as you're saying, say you have a get age function, maybe you have a get date of birth function. With the actual functions, that's okay. But you see, with testing, this is basically just testing. So instead of checking one by one by one by one by one, and every time you have to wait for, the app to launch again, or the website to launch again to test the second function, you can have a very long function that checks everything in app. It doesn't, you don't have to, switch, go out of the website to come back to check the next thing, to go out to come back, check the next thing. You can link them up. That's the beauty of, testing, writing code in testing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a really good insight. Because yeah, I think now my given when thens will change.
Okay,
I'll
that's good.
definitely change my given then when statements. So do you have a scenario of a time when automated testing really had a big, huge impact in a project that you are in?
Yes, and I remember it was automation testing really helped in delivering that product in time.
Okay.
Because what had happened was, you can say that you're going to finish development in 2 weeks, but then development ends up taking 3 weeks. So we had really reached our deadline,
Okay.
and we had a very short span of time to do our tests. And you cannot push a product to the end user without testing. At that point you haven't ensured quality,
Yeah.
so they're going to probably encounter a number of bugs. So what happened was, we we had to automate most of the tests, and some of the tests had a lot of input data. So it was going to be, we had to test a number of bands, like how I said, 0 to 100. You test like three, you say you take 6, 20, 99, and then you move to the second band and you had like 100 bands. If you if we were to do it ourselves, probably it would have taken us a longer time, given the fact that we're just two testers in that project, and we had a lot of features to test. There were so many features to test. So with automation, you just feed it the chunk of data. Something that will have taken me 1 hour, it takes it 15 minutes,
Mm.
and it's very accurate. With me, I will go like, is that 6? Okay, and then 9, and then I have to keep checking and then you get to a point, you get lost where you are, and then you start over. Oh my gosh, I can't remember what I missed. Then you start over, you see. So that project, given that it had a lot of input data, automation really helped in terms of saving on time and eventually cost, and delivering the project in time.
Okay. Yeah. So, it can even, when you are maybe few members of the team, this can be having a very big impact to you, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay. That's brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Jillian, for joining today for the live stream on test automation. Depending on what the response will be from the team or from the subscribers, maybe we'll invite you again for something else. I don't know what else on automation haven't I mentioned that you could want to mention, or maybe they can ask me, but maybe you can tell us any other thing about automation that I didn't ask and you feel is something that you can share that is helpful to someone who is either doing it or would like to start doing automation testing to make them more efficient or something. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. So I would say make sure to, like, this may sound cliche, but just study. You cannot just dive into a topic without having knowledge on it. You can't get good without studying on it. So there are books on automation these days. There's so many YouTube channels on, literally, you can learn anything on the internet. There is Udemy, and this is not a paid promotion. We just say, I'm just mentioning where people can get knowledge on
It's
this.
okay. It's okay.
You can do certifications. There are certifications that you can do. For example, there's ISTQB. You can do Scrum fundamentals. There is ITIL. There are several certifications you can do, or you can take up courses, to get you up to speed with automation. There's also the internet, social media. There are teams of QAs. Once you join some of these online forums, you get to learn more about something,
Okay.
as opposed to you just maybe even studying about it. When you interact and discuss these things with other people, there's definitely something someone else knows that you don't know. So people can also consider joining some of the online forums, and just discussing with other QAs, discussions. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's great advice. Yeah, I didn't know that there are some certifications on just testing. So I think,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, the automation testing has really grown. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's it for me for today. Unless you have something else, I think we can stop the stream from there.
Okay. No, nothing else from my end. Thank
Okay.
you for having me here today. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Your insights will be really, really helpful to the team. And we hope that they'll embrace automation testing. And see you soon. Stick
See you.
around.
Thanks.
Stick around in the meeting.
Okay, thanks.